Hello, IT team.
Hello, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Headphone की जरूरत नहीं है ऐसे का. Pankure,
Yes, ma'am.
Sneha will not be here.
I got the message.
You know, no? Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Without mic, without headphones, I am audible now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
What about the other panelists, Pankuri?
I think they're about to join. Let me ask once again. Yeah.
Sorry.
think we can wait, or should we start? Maybe they can join later. Veena,
We have to wait, I think.
Mhm.
No?
They have
Yeah.
already given their consent that they'll be joining and they'll be part of this thing. Now it's 12 o'clock already. We'll wait for 2-3 minutes, otherwise we'll start. What can we do?
Yes.
Hello? 1 minute. हेलो नमस्कार मैम, मैं बीना बोल रही हूँ। ओहो, कनेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है। यहाँ से हम लोग कुछ ट्राई कर। हाँ, I'll ask them. Okay. She's not able to connect Pam Rajput now. हेलो, पैम राजपूत नहीं कनेक्ट कर पा रही हैं। बोले मैंने सब कुछ कर दिया, हो नहीं रहा। आप लोग वहां से करिए कुछ। हाँ,
Soumya or IT team, Professor Chakraborty is also here, but she's unable to unmute herself. Can you please check if she is in the panelist column or the participant or the other one?
both of them are having problems.
They must have used the other link, I guess.
Yes.
Professor Chakraborty, if you are able to hear, the panelist password is different, I think.
It's 2021.
You must have received an email from WebEx as a panelist. Can you just log out and log in from there and use the panelist code?
हेलो, हाँ मैम बोल दिया है उनको, वो लोग ट्राई कर रहे हैं आपको। मैम एक पासवर्ड के लिए पूछ रहे हैं। ओके
Professor Chakrabarti is here.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful, wonderful.
You're audible. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Ma'am, we'll wait for Pam Rajput, ma'am, for some time and then we'll start.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Professor Chakrabarti has joined.
Yes. Ma'am, she's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you for joining.
Since the two of you are here, shall we start? Then I think in the meanwhile, Professor Rajput can also join.
Sure, we can.
Would that be good, Pankaj?
Yeah, please. Sure. You may start. Thank you.
Yes. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion on women's issues in G20 and way forward. So let me begin by wishing all of you a happy Women's Day. There isn't a better time than today to discuss gender parity across social and economic spaces globally. So now when I say gender parity, I say this with the assertion that for resilient and viable economies, diversity and full participation is required, and therefore women's empowerment should not be looked at purely from a rights-based perspective. It is fundamental for economic growth and social development. And probably this was the, with this acknowledgement that in G20, gender commitments are generally focused on increasing female labor participation and improving workplace conditions with the help of appropriate social and physical infrastructure. Over the years, however, the scope of discussions have widened, and this includes gender-based violence. And even during COVID, the focus was on disproportionate impact of COVID on women. Under the Indonesian presidency, the W20 has further added new issues, and this includes rural women and gender equal health responses. So given the multidimensional nature of parity that is being discussed at this forum, it would be interesting to see how this panel discussion would throw light on the G20 commitments that can be designed with mechanisms to ensure equity and reduce gender gaps to the advantage of women. And with this, I hand over to Dr. Pankhuri Kaur to start the moderation on this panel discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Pathak. As she has rightly mentioned that the women's role in G20 is very huge, and the gender inequality specifically is not a new element in the G20 economies. In 2014, the target 25 cross 25 was there, which was committed by the G20 members, and the gender gap to reduce the gender gap to 25% by 2025. However, the COVID-19 pandemic disproportionately affected the economic well-being of the women, and it has not only worsened the gender inequality, but also has aggravated the household challenges like more burden with the household work and in many cases domestic violence. The G20 provides an platform to discuss the gender issues where the countries may collaborate and build common strength to share the responsibilities and learn from experiences from each other to advance the goals of equality and reduce the gender gap, and therefore promote the development of women and girls. To discuss the role of women in G20, specifically the challenges and the credible solutions, we have an excellent panel with us. Let me first introduce two of them. I hope Professor Rajput has joined. No, she's not here right now. One of our panelists is Professor Lekha Chakraborty. She is a professor at NIPFP and an elected member of the Governing Board Management, International Institute of Public Finance. She is a pioneering economist in institutionalizing gender budgeting in India. Her areas of interest are public finance, fiscal federalism, extractive sector economics, financing human development, and gender budgeting. Our next panelist is Dr. Bina Pandey. She is an assistant professor at RIS. Her research areas broadly cover social sectors like quality of education, gender empowerment, development issues, and also she has also worked in IPSA's performance across the social sector and sustainable development, particularly focusing on Goal 4 related to education and Goal 5 related to gender equality. She's also the chairperson of Committee for Prevention of Sexual Harassment of the Women's Employees posted in RIS. We will give 12 to 15 minutes to the panelists, and then we will have an open discussion. I would like Professor Chakraborty to have the floor and start the discussions. Please, ma'am. Professor Chakraborty?
She's on mute, I think. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. On this special day, International Women's Day, it's so that, RIS and NIPFP, we are together, on this G20 panel. And thank you so much for this invite. It's so precious. 2 years back, I was there, for that program, and I particularly enjoyed, speaking to, the participants on, financing deficit that time. Now, let me begin, our conversation today by, giving emphasis to the importance of integrating gender into the public policy. Because, if you look at the public action and public policy, both are very important to integrate gender concerns into the public policy. And G20, in that way, it's a wonderful forum for the international policy coordination. But at the same time, gender equality as an international public good, those kind of deliberations, I think it is yet to begin, because, we are focusing more or less on the economic growth recovery process, especially in the time of pandemic. And such an important forum like G20, giving emphasis to financing the human development and giving emphasis to gender equality goals, I think we need to do more work for that international policy coordination. So that's a point number one I would love to highlight. Otherwise, in the national policies and in the the budgetary policies or in the monetary policies, how we are pushing our frontier to incorporate the gender concerns, in that sense, fiscal policy is moving quite fastly, but we are ready to begin, integrating gender concerns in the monetary policy framework, because you can understand that our central bank governor he's not in a mood to talk about the gender equality goals. But of course, there is an open conversation about the climate change commitments and the greening of monetary policy. But gender equality goals, it's not his cup of tea. But, it looks so normal on the fiscal policy front, in the Ministry of Finance in the North Block, it became quite normal for them to talk about the gender equality goals. But that was not the situation, when we began our work in NIPFP. I think RIS, in the institutional memory we have, in 2000, when we began this, pushing the frontier for integrating gender into the macroeconomic policy framework, things were quite tough. And that journey, getting a recognition and to get an acceptance, it took a long time. Now, when finance ministers, it's an important forum. G20 is an important forum so that, finance ministers, they have an important role to play in the G20 forum. And, that's why I'm highlighting that Ministry of Finance talking from the gender equality goals of financing human development as a core issue that has begun only very recently. Otherwise, to get a place, on board with them when we talk about inflation, interest rates, and the fiscal deficit, things were quite tough to talk about, gender equality goals. And one important fiscal innovation that has happened to integrate gender into the policy space is gender budgeting. And now, against the backdrop of COVID pandemic, gender budgeting is becoming an important, promising framework or a policy tool to, take this discussions ahead and to integrate the gender concerns as a, social justice tool, as an, women's empowerment, economic empowerment tool, and also, to get it into the public financial management framework, because it's an important public financial management framework. And you can understand the importance of PFM, especially when, this economic pandemic packages, they're very short run in nature. Today or tomorrow, we have to begin the normalization procedure. So when we begin this normalization procedure, whatever policy announcements to stimulate the economy, that will vanish. Then, the PFM tools like gender budgeting has an important role to play. And, there is a paper by IMF on, gender budgeting in G20 countries. And it's a very recent paper. And that they have written on the basis of the survey that is done in the 19 countries and the European Union. And the broad understanding of that paper is, like, if you look at the gender diagnosis, in education, in health, over the years, G20 countries are doing very well. But in case of labor force participation, in narrowing the gender gap in wages, these are very crucial. And, if the fastest and smartest way to develop, if you have to get the women on board, we have to increase the labor force participation, then what kind of public policy, we have to think about. And G20 in all countries, it is not only in Saudi Arabia or India, but in developed countries also, this issue of the gender wage gap, that's quite crucial. And to get the women on board, to increase the labor force participation, that's quite crucial. And for this, if the public policy is focusing just on employer of last resort policies, because, that's an important policy, to integrate gender concerns into the macroeconomic policy framework. We have an international working group on employer of last resort policy, ELR. But, if you don't look into the time stress concerns of women, the employer of last resort policy may be partial to get women on board, because if you look into the Scandinavian country experiences and all, they have given much emphasis to a very comprehensive care economy infrastructure. But in this G20 countries broadly, when we talk about the gender development, I think I'm afraid that we are just focusing on the market economy. Whatever is measured, whatever is monetized, that is statistically visible. But whatever is unmonetized, that is still statistically invisible. And that sector, the market work or the unpaid sector, that is not getting importance in the policy deliberations. So in order to improve, at least we have to make a beginning from this point forward, that in order to improve the overall economic well-being of the G20 countries, and especially in the time of pandemic, we have to give emphasis to comprehensive care economy framework. And the time you survey, the chronology of the time which we computed or which we have stored, that's a new kind of, getting the data on board. The innovative data is also very important when we talk about the gender equality goals. So we need to analyze the time you survey, the chronology of the time, and to understand the work-life balance, to understand the time poverty issue. Then only we will get the question of, getting women on board to increase the labor force participation. And, unlike other countries, one crucial concern for India is the gender discrimination in India starts even before birth. And if the discrimination starts even before birth, our policies need to be a little different than the other G20 countries in terms of how to do a corrective action, in terms to, correct that discrimination that happens even before birth. And the public policy, it's not only the legal fiat and the regulations, but the public policy has got an important role to play to improve that, whatever is happening, that discrimination in terms of, gender that happens even before birth in the context of, India. So in that way, there are, cases in which there is convergence. There could be an international policy coordination, and we can use or we can strengthen the G20 forum to take ahead, a kind of deliberations which are required to gender equality goals. But the cases like, gender equality in terms of the gender discrimination starts even before birth. If other G20 countries cannot connect to our program, then we need to strengthen the in-house, the public policy frameworks to address these kind of concerns. And, my final point is the heterogeneity of stakeholders is very important. And I'm so happy that the youngsters and, RAS and, you have taken a wonderful initiative to start the deliberations of the G20 panel and, try to integrate the gender concerns. And I think we need to take this policy ahead in terms of, the international public good issue. We need to start the deliberations in our country and to keep it ahead that, frontier has to be pushed from the perspective of gender equality as an international public good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your insightful discussion and thought-provoking points. Professor Rajput is here. I would like to introduce her first and then would ask her to join the discussion. She is a professor at the Center for Women's Studies and Development, Punjab University. She has over 2 decades of experience in research and advocacy on gender and development issues. She was the first speaker of a women's parliament that brought together over 500 women leaders from every part of India. A recipient of many academic fellowships, she is a member of several expert committees, including National Commission for Women, Delegation to the United Commission on the Status of Women, and many others. Ma'am, please, we would be very happy to hear on this issue, G20, a women's issue in G20 from you.
Thank you so much for introducing me, and I'm sorry I got late because I couldn't get connected. But whatever I heard from Lekha Chakrabarti, I endorse and ditto every word that she has uttered. So, but there may be repetitions also. Having participated in W20 summits since 2017, what comes out very clearly is, the labor issue, the finance issue, and then, of course, the technological revolution that has taken place. And I'm absolutely one with Lekhaji when she was talking about how the pandemic crisis has affected, and so the issues that have been emerging, and particularly one issue that she has been talking, and I would like to talk again, is that way back when Australia chaired the presidency, they came out with, that time W20 had not been set up. They came out with what is known as Brisbane goal, right? And that precisely related to reducing the gap 25 by 25. So this is perhaps the only goal and one of the major concerns, that this goal is still to be achieved in most of the countries, though as Lekha said that in our country, the situation is little, rather bad, and this continues to be. So what is important to see is that the last G20 declaration, where it has a very strong paragraph on women's issues, but certainly they have also attached what is roadmap, right? Roadmap to, realize particularly this Brisbane goal onwards. I think it's very important to see, one, of course, is that we are raising the issues, right? In case of labor, the issues that typically, important to us is, one is low workforce participation rate, where again our country is little at the low level, but there is that unpaid work, issues of social protection, and wage gap again, and decent work, social security protection. All these issues are important along with that. But what is heartening to see is that the last G20 declaration is quite positive on women's issues for that matter. One, for example, women's leadership at all levels and it should be inclusive. So they are talking of diversity, intersectionality. In a way, they don't use the word intersectional, but they are talking in terms of diversity, and also they are along with that talking about STEM. STEM is very, very important, and it is very interesting to note that India has the largest percentage of women in STEM in the world. But when it comes to their employment, it's only 16% or so, 14 or 16%. So the issues are, there another issue that is critical to all the countries, and it has become more, important after the pandemic, and that is gender-based violence against women. Not only domestic violence, gender-based violence on the whole is an issue that has been a concern in most of the countries. Also, Lekhaji talked about that in India we have discrimination right from the birth, and I would say that if it may not be right from the birth, but stereotyping and social norms are a problem in most of the G20 countries, not India alone, most of the G20 countries. And that is why the communique of Italy, particularly put emphasis on the stereotype and social norms. So the issues, again, if I were to say, some are old, some, of course, according to our own, we will, need to add, whether it is, gender budgeting. And I'm very happy she talked about, Lekhaji again. So the advantage of being a second speaker is that most of the points have been covered for that matter. And I really go with her that can there be an international policy coordination? This is very, very important. Of course, when it comes to India, when it has a presidency next time, I think we need to brainstorm again second time. This is just, we are looking at the issues, where do we stand and what is the way forward. In the way forward, I would particularly, and again also, let me mention, when we were talking about the labor, this is not only in the this thing. When it comes to finance, again, women business owners, it's very interesting to see during pandemic, their figure has come down. It increased in 8 countries, but decreased in 10 countries. And India is one of those countries where also the business owners decreased. And of course, women in, those positions, we have about 17% women holding those positions. So with these entrenched, social norms, and in spite of the fact that right from first some women summit, the issues on technology, on labor, on finance, they have been raised. But the last G20 declaration, is quite positive on touching those, particularly, if you look at paragraph 33 and 34, they extensively have touched the core issues. So in that light, you see, what I would personally feel when I would like to say a few words about, way forward for that matters, and most of the issues have been discussed earlier. So one, of course, is that the G20 declarations and different track modes, we have the statements, and they take care of the gender issues. But what is important is to develop a mechanism at the national level, for the implementation of that, and the development of labor market policies through gender lens. Also, what I feel is that there is need still of gender disaggregated data. She has used the word innovative. I think innovative and sensitive gender disaggregated data is still a need of the day. And also, I mean, we in W20, as I said, I have been representing India at W20 since 2017, and I have been also chairing the working groups of W20, and this year I'm chairing their working group on freedom from discrimination. So whatever you say, the question is that we come out with communique every year. This is an issue of concern. We come out with a communique every year. We do the advocacy, and some, statements or some of our advocacy points are there in the in the G20 declaration. But important way forward to me is very important to develop gender impact assessment. So how do we do the gender impact assessment? Monitoring the implementation and evaluation of all the legislation, political strategies, initiatives, including the post-pandemic reconstruction plans and climate response. So I think this is very important. Of course, we have the what we call as OECD reports. McKinsey OECD has been coming out with report every year, but though they're they take social norms as the basis, but still on all the critical issues they have come out what has been successful, which country has taken which steps. But amongst the W20 countries, I think we need to develop a kind of an impact assessment for the monitoring and implementation. And also, I think one issue which is common to all the G20 countries, whether developed or fully developed or developing, and that is gender-based violence. Violence both in public sector as well as in private sector. This is an issue there is unanimity. And in fact, this year, the UN was having a discussion, and they, it goes with that. And they are, there is a campaign going on that every year we had the Commission on the Status of Women, right? And now it is being demanded that during the Commission on the Status of Women, violence against women should be a standing agenda for that matter, right? So it is very important that, you may go on having policies, but unless, you don't have those spaces for women to have, say and enjoy the benefits of those policies, then it becomes redundant. So this violence against women is an important issue. And also, I think somewhere, of course, it is G20 countries, but somewhere we also need to partner with other groupings like W7. It's very important we partner with W7. It is very important that we partner with the countries like BRICS. You hold this also, the RIS, has the forte for all this. So it is very important that we, combine the energies. For instance, it's interesting that W7 has even advisors from non-W7 countries, and I was invited to be one of the advisors. And one working group that they have set up, and I think it's important for G20 countries also, and that is, accountability mechanism and the framework for that matter, which will go, with my first point that I made up. So we need to develop, along with, one is the issues, their dimensions in each country, and one is the commitment of G20 countries, and then the commitment of each country. What do we national mechanisms we have? So we need to develop both national as well as international mechanisms. I stop here because I feel so very happy that Lekha ji touched beautifully all the points that I really wanted to. So I'm not repeating for that matter, but certainly labor and violence and finance, this gender budgeting is something very, very important, and also financial, structure for women to come up in the business sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the comprehensive overview of the issues in G20 and the way forward. Now I would like to call Dr. Bina Pandey for her presentation.
Thank you, Pankuri. Good afternoon, all the panelists and my fellow panelists also. It's very difficult for me after the two eminent speakers to speak about these gender issues. They are the stalwarts in their field, and but I'll try my best, whatever I can do. First of all, I would like to thank my Director General for approving this seminar in a very short notice, and he has also involved me in this, and I'm thankful to both the panelists. They have agreed to join within a day, within a half day, they have agreed to join. Thanks, my fellow panelists. It's a feel-good factor that it's all women, it's a Women's Day, but the problem with the women, everybody knows this. As the topic of the seminar suggests that women's issue in G20 countries way forward. However, all the issues have been duly covered by eminent panelists. So I'll try my best, whatever I can do. To begin with, I'll just give you a brief background how we have RIS is working on G20. The thing is that to begin with, we are all know that right now Indonesia has the presidency of G20, and as a part of Troika, India, Italy, and Indonesia are working together. And RIS is very much part of T20 process. And hopefully, when India will have the presidency, G20 presidency in 2023, RIS expand its horizon and will definitely work on independently. At RIS, we all know that Dr. Priyadarshi Das is leading our G20 work program. So, Dr. Priyadarshi, wherever I'm wrong, just please put in your word this thing. The thing is that in the last year, we all at RIS have done a major exercise of reviewing all the task forces of the last 4-5 presidencies. What all the topics, task forces, engagement groups, working groups, and chairs and co-chairs, under which we came to know that there are this time in Indonesia, there are 9 task forces. But the thing what I have observed in that, in the last 4 presidencies in Italy, Saudi Arabia, Japan, there was no task force on specifically on gender issues. It was only Argentina in 2018, there was a task force on social cohesion and gender economic equity. Indonesia has also social cohesion, inequality. In this task force, only gender issues will come up. In Indonesia, also in 2022, out of 9 task force 5 is on inequality, human capital, and well-being. So within that, we have to focus on gender issues. Now, ever since 2008, G20 summits have been held annually, and within G20, there are several working groups like B20, Business 20, Labor 20, C20, everybody knows this. I'm just telling about to all my RAs who are new to this subject. So I thought, let me tell you that what exactly is W20. W20 is a Women 20, and it's established with the aim to give further impetus to women economic empowerment, gender equality, inclusive growth, and have women's cooperation in international economic sector. It's a network of transnational women's organizations, think tanks, female entrepreneurship, and associations. Now, if we come to the issues of the women's issue in G20 countries, in view of the commonality of interest in G20 countries, the impact of various development policies, plans, programs implemented within the G20 framework, there have been some perceptible improvement in the socio-economic status of women. Since its inception in G20, various communiques and declarations have been put forth, but in each and every communique and declarations, the line starts with the "we are committed, we are committed." But in 2014 only, as Professor Pam Rajput has and Professor Lekha Chakravarti has also mentioned, that in 2014 in Brisbane, there was a huge hue and cry for the labor force participation rate. And it was now that by 2025 will reduce by 25%, reduce the gender gap in labor force participation rate. But there is no, as such, after 2014, there is no progress report of that actually where we are standing today. That means there should be some commitments to action points also for all the G20 countries. Though women who have been contributing effectively in promoting economic growth of the nations, apart from sharing wide variety of responsibilities, playing pivotal role in upbringing their children, supplementing the family incomes, and doing unpaid care work, they are doing taking care of children, elderly, disabled, dependent, but still they are openly discriminated at every level. Despite various measures and initiatives taken and efforts made at different levels, gender disparity, as my previous speakers have said, there is a gender disparity before the birth of a girl child in health, nutrition, education, employment, decision-making, learning losses in education, their participation in STEM, access to technology, finance, you name it, you have it there. Access to technology, credit, low levels of digital literacy, and even lower employment opportunities. And more importantly, in political participation, we are also seeing this. There's an inequality of opportunities for women in the G20 countries. Apart from this, I may go a step further that domestic violence is almost a worldwide phenomena in every country. That is a pity on us. The World Economic Forum in 2020, through its Global Gender Gap Report 2020, stated that it will take another 100 years to achieve gender equality based on the current rate of progress. Women are constrained from achieving the highest leadership positions. Only 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. According to WHO, gender equity in health and social care work remains a challenge. Women hold 70% of jobs in healthcare and care work, but only holds 25% of leadership roles. On average, only 55% of adult women are in the labor market versus 78% in the women. But the condition here for the female labor force participation rate in India is the lowest among the G20 countries. I was just going through some UNDP human development reports. It was there. It was only around 20.5% in 2019. 2017, it was 21, and now it's 20%. In the latest human development reports. And gender gaps in access to financial digital inclusion are in a critical situation, especially for the lowest strata of the society. Women in SMEs are more likely to operate within the sectors that are most adversely affected by pandemic, like they are in the wholesale and retail sectors, and there is a decrease in demand for their products because of the pandemic and also because of the economic shutdowns and all. According to Forbes, only 25% of female entrepreneurs seek finance for their business as compared to the 34% of men. Given the impact of pandemic, a return to pre-pandemic status may be hard, but despite this challenge, it would be important to seek new opportunities, adapt to the new situations, and set on innovative, ambitious, and transformative paradigms. This Indonesia, under Indonesian presidency, there is one initiative called G20 Empower. I was studying that they have formulated some next steps to address this issue of gender equality. It's not that they only have to strengthen the women in leadership or in the big business only. They are focusing on how to mentor the women in startups, in SMEs, and in the rural areas also. And post-COVID, they are focusing on digital technologies, upskilling workers, and providing safe and decent work environment for all. Empowering women in the economy and closing gender gaps in the workforce are key to achieving 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. Apart from this, I just want to highlight here that W20, and there's one more initiative by the G20 countries for women entrepreneurs, is V5, WE-FI, Women Entrepreneurs Financing Initiative. It is the most important initiative that have provided the enabling environment for women empowerment, resulting in better quality of life. They provide funds to the women entrepreneurs to become entrepreneurs in supply chains, or also to become in India also some 2 projects are also going on for this. They are it's a one company called insurance company called CoverFox, or for this they are mentoring these women to become the insurance brokers and all. So it's a good initiative. V5 and W20 are the good initiative. And in this, 14 donor countries are there, apart from the some multilateral development banks are there. But they are giving money for the entrepreneurship, to funding money to the entrepreneurs in different developing countries. Since 2012, successive G summits have focused on issues related to gender equality in terms of promoting women economic empowerment in the course of ending all kinds of discrimination and gender-based violence, vocational, technical, labor market, decent working condition. But all these are only commitments. We need proper, thorough, right kind of policies by our government. In putting gender equality at the core of G20, W20 in one of their meetings urged all the member states of the G20 to advance member states' policies towards by 25 target set by G20 for reducing the gender gap in labor force participation by 2025 by putting forward national plan of actions. But I'm not aware whether any country is doing anything on this. But the one thing is that India can be a trendsetter in this regard. For financial inclusion, we are focusing on budget transfer money in the banks also. So India is a trendsetter. Other countries can also learn from the Indian point of view. My third thing is that, which I just want to say, is that to overcome these challenges, with funding contributions to 14 countries, these women entrepreneurs have changed their lives. There is a substantial change in the lives of these women. Special provisions are needed for the G20 countries to encourage women in each and every country to take admissions in science-based education. We have, I know we have doctors, but most of the females are nurses, paramedics, and attendants only. So I think these are some of the issues which each and every country in the G20 are facing. The thing is that what I feel is that apart from these, the government in these countries should work effectively in close partnership with the public, private organizations, and civil society organizations in order to bring significant socio-economic development to improve the socio-economic development conditions of women. It also needs to be emphasized here that the results achieved so far have been the outcome of the positive initiatives. Women empowerment is a gradual process. We are saying this for so long. Women, it's a gradual process. It cannot be achieved overnight. But we have to take small steps for this. After all, it has to change the overall perception about those at the bottom of the pyramid. So we need multi-pronged strategies are to be adopted and to ensure the economic empowerment that only leads to the social and political empowerment. I'm just ending here. I'm just, today only I got one message for the Women's Day that message is so simple. The thing is that it was that the potential within you is greater than the obstacles around you. So with this happy note, I'm just ending this. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such a nice presentation. Now, I would like to open the floor for discussion. If we have any questions from the participants or the attendees, you may write your question in the chat box or raise your hands and we can take up the question. Yes, ma'am, please.
Sorry. With the presence of Pam Rajput, I can't keep mum. So I have one question from Rajput ma'am. Ma'am, I have read somewhere that G20 members have produced a consensus document, including their commitments to gender equality. Have you got any information on this? Consensus document to improve to.
You see, the last declaration comes out with a roadmap,
Okay.
right? Yeah, and there is a consensus on that roadmap. So this is for the first time they have come out with a comprehensive roadmap. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. When was it? It came document, this consensus document?
Actually 2021.
Actually, 2021. It's a recent one.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Okay.
recent.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ma'am, can I ask a question? If nobody is asking, then I would like to ask the question to the entire panel. That how are there some other as in a country experiences that countries within the G20 or countries outside the G20 also? Is there any experience of a specific country that we can learn from in specifically this issue, and then as in more countries can benefit out of it? Or do you suggest any one country that we should take as a role model and in for gender issues, and then we can focus on some policies or national policies that that country has used for other members of the group?
You know, you want me to answer this question?
Ma'am, anybody, please.
All right. But maybe others would change, but I would say you can't say on all the issues, but you can pick up, you know, certain issues. For example, there are a few countries which have come out with feminist foreign policy, right? Which is very good. And Argentina is one of them. Soon, Germany is going to come up with that. So there are a couple of, Canada is one of them. There are few countries coming out with feminist foreign policy. So as a result of which, many issues that we are talking about could be covered in that. So that is one instance I want to give. And second, of course, is in terms of political participation. Again, the latest will be that, and in Canada too, that the ministerial positions are 50-50 nearly, right? You know, Canada again 50%, and for that matter, Germany again 50%, you know, kind of thing. So if one goes by, you will find that there are some countries, the examples of which can be followed. Yeah.
The panelists like to.
Pankuri, can I answer about this thing also?
Sure,
I've got
yes,
a
ma'am.
list of gender equal countries.
Hmm.
I was just searching something. So it was the most gender equal country in the world for the 12th time is Iceland.
Oh, okay.
Iceland, after that Finland, then Norway, New Zealand, Sweden. In fact, Namibia, I was wondering about the Namibia also, but Namibia, Rwanda, Lithuania, Ireland, and Switzerland. These are the 10 countries. These are the most gender, most,
You know,
almost, not the fully, but almost the gender equal country. So at least we should.
Iceland, Bina ji, Iceland tops. Iceland tops every year in the World Economic Forum Gender Global Gap Index.
Okay.
But the question is, none of these countries, right, are part of G20.
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have only what we call as European Union.
Yes.
As a part of this thing, right? So, and it so happens that in our W20, we have representation from European Union, but they are none of from these countries which are gender equal countries. So in fact, we are trying to see to it, you know, that one of these countries are also represented in the Women 20. But in terms of political participation, since Bina ji mentioned about that, there are only 5 countries in the world, right? Rwanda is one, Ecuador is another, UAE is another, Cuba is another. So just 5 countries where you have, uh, Rwanda, of course, crosses 65%, but the countries where have, close to 50% representation. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
But when it comes to stereotypes, right? This is true of every country. But Bina ji was talking about this stereotype is in every country. And so while the OECD report also comes out very strongly on those stereotypes and social norms, Italy last year when during their presidency, they had a project on this, right? How to do away with this stereotype. So they came up with recommendation. But what again needs to be learned, and I was sharing it in some seminar yesterday also, they have come out with a project of 100 women, right? Women in their country who have done so well in every sphere. Like in our country, women are doing wonderful. But how many people know about that? I always share that if you go to our Punjab University and go to physics department, there you will find on the wall the pictures of the Nobel Prize winners. But what is missing is Marie Curie, right? Who won 2 Nobel Prizes. So the mindset, you don't think of women as achievers, so you tend to ignore that. So it's not there. So this Italy people, and I wish we can also do it in India. I'm encouraging people to think 100 women projects. So 100 women who have really, and that should be part of the curricula, So while we are talking about skilling and all that, but how do you, from the childhood, socialize? And our new education policy is something, which has a window for this, because it talks about gender from the preschool, yeah. So maybe we could combine, when the presidency comes to India, what kind of a, events we organize and what kind of things we suggest. Thank you.
Ma'am, we do have a comment in the chat box by Dr. Kundu. She said that more women in entrepreneurship can lead us to more financial independence and holistic development. What is India's take on this? Can anybody from the panelists or Professor Lekha Chakraborty?
I would say on
Yes.
this, but let others take over. I don't want to take all the questions.
Yes.
That our government is positive on this side, is trying to encourage, come out with the policies and all that for that matter. And I think we need to do more in this respect. We need to do more. Of course, MSMEs are coming. Now the conditions for the finances to be available are slightly being relaxed. But I think as far as the policy is concerned, India is on this side, but actions still need to be taken for that matter. Because I remember our Honorable Prime Minister speaking when he was speaking for this event of the Women Business Alliance, BRICS का जो business alliance group बना है, उसके में बोल रहे थे. So he was talking about, women as nation builders, right? So I think it is time we catch these phrases and see how the policy formulations can be there with the kind of investment that is required to take these ideas forward. Thank you.
Professor Chakraborty, if you'd like to add in.
Yeah, thank you. It was wonderful listening to, Professor Rajput and, Professor Bina. And I know that this fire in the belly to, make this happen, that, without going this day, let go this day, that wonderful initiative from RIS, I was listening to Bina, that the youngsters have taken the initiative. And, I don't have any other points to add on to the foreign policy, the feminist foreign policy, and the political participation of women. Rajput ji has rightly widely, highlighted. That's an important thing, because when we talk about mainstreaming gender, we have to talk about, this kind of gender neutral. It's prima facie, it looks like gender neutral when we talk about the external sector or external ministry, but it's so relevant that we need to apply a gender lens in the external sector or in the external ministry. So from that perspective, if you look at the immigration, we can't categorize from, if you apply a gender lens, we can categorize the immigrants into, the women working in other countries, the women go as, spouse of, when they go for the intra company transfers, and the women as refugees. So each category of women, they experience violence, or they experience the capability deprivation in a very distinct, different manner. So applying a gender lens into that is also an international policy coordination. But it is very tough to talk about any specific country as a model or a best practice, in terms of gender. As Professor Bina and Professor Rajput pointed out, most of our experiences are, coming from outside G20 countries, especially from the Scandinavian countries, from Sweden. Those country experiences may be little bit of a, role model we can follow, but within the G20, maybe Canada, that gender-based analysis they are doing to mainstream gender in the public policy. And of course, as Rajaputji pointed out, that 50-50, that participation, that feminization of governance and in the political participation, that's quite crucial. And this gender-based analysis, that GBA analysis of Canada, I think that's a very good template to mainstream gender into, national framework and also in the international policy frameworks. So, but in our country, we have gender budgeting, but we don't have a GBA, a gender-based analysis, and it has to be made mandatory through legal frameworks that each of our department or each of our institutions, because if institutions fail, everything fails. So the gender lens have to be applied in institutions by formulating a gender-based analysis framework, and that could, what you call, get into the international forums and the task force, so fast. And, if you don't have a national framework for integrating the GBA, then, it is tough to go for the international deliberation. So it has to begin from home. That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else needs to add on some points, or any more questions we have?
Pankuri.
No, then I would like to summarize. Actually, the discussion is so comprehensive, and it would be very difficult for me to get all the points together, but I would try my level best and would highlight the major issues that the panelists have raised and with the way forward that all of them have provided the main highlights for the session. The challenges that we are facing with in G20 specifically, or the G20 countries specifically, is the labor issue, where Professor Rajput highlighted that even though India has the largest percentage of STEM women in the world, however, only 16% are employed. We have financial issues, where Professor Chakraborty discussed the importance of integrating gender in public policy, introduction of gender budgeting in framework at various levels. We have technological revolution, gender bias, violence and stereotypes are concerns for all the countries, which is not only restricted to the G20s, but also the other countries. In some countries, as the panelists pointed out, that gender discrimination starts before birth. However, women are enormous potential in supporting nations' economic growth and development. Developments like digitizations offer a variety of opportunities for female participation. However, there are many barriers owing to the increasing use of Industry 4.0 technologies. This has increased the necessity to ensure the central role of the women in attaining equitable and inclusive recovery in the world economy. Through advanced digital literacy, promoting their interest in STEM field, or readiness in the digital economy, as Dr. Pandey already discussed, or supporting women in SMEs, private, public workplace, etc. So the way forward is, one, there is a need to develop a mechanism at the national level, which can be further integrated into a regional and then at a global level. The development of labor market for gender equality is very important. Gender impact assessment, as all the panelists pointed out, is very important and should be made necessary, mandatory at the institutions. And for that, gender disaggregated data is required, and the need for the hour. Need to partner with other countries and groupings, specifically W7, Canada, etc., is very much important. And there is a need for proper and thorough policies for the from the government in close relationship with civil society, private and public partnership. Thank you so much for the to all the panelists and to all the participants also. I would also like to thank the panelists for their insightful presentations and a comprehensive discussion on the issue. Further, I would like to, at the last, I would like to thank Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, DG RIS, for organizing this timely event. And lastly, I would say to all the women out there, happy International Women's Day. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.